Okay. All right.
Well, I'm gonna put this away. Something's on the floor. What is that?
That's a dog bone, but that's not part of this.
Well, what'd she do? Take off somewhere?
Yeah, she took the kids away to keep them quiet. So, well, tell me, this is 2004. You were born in 1924. That makes you.
Well, how much? I can't count that far.
I think you're 80. And
I'm a miracle to be here. I got too many ailments.
I'd say no, you're way above average on being healthy.
Well, I can't get over. Look at that leg.
By the fact that it's
And
bald.
like Olivia, she's got skinny legs and her shoulders are wider than her hips.
Yeah.
She looks more like a young kid than a boy or a girl, but then
She's a
I
good
guess she'll change when she.
Yeah, she's a good climber. So what were your earliest memories as a kid?
I was a little devil, that's what I was. That's what my
Well, you
mother
weren't the
said.
firstborn,
See,
you weren't the last. So
Well, I
why?
was in the middle. You recording on that thing?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you're trying to deceive me then, aren't you?
No, well, there's this giant bright light shining in your face.
Is it in color?
Yeah.
What about the volume part of it?
This is a test to see if it works. I think it's all automatic and it just, yeah, it does the sound in the pictures.
I don't see how something like that works.
Well, it's all digital. We'll plug it into my computer when I'm done and we'll see how it works. But what are your earliest memories?
Well,
I know you said you got, a chunk taken out of your leg from a snapping turtle, but you were older then. What's your earliest memory?
well, I can remember way back, I think they took us, my mother took me in a baby buggy to go get vaccinated for something to a doctor.
What, you walked to achievement?
No, that's when we were living,
Sibley?
before I started school. Yeah, we were living in Sibley.
Huh. So you,
See, we didn't live on the farm for a few years when I was real small.
because you were born on the farm and then you moved to
And
Sibley.
he had one renter that lived on there for, I don't know how many years, Delbert Humphrey. And then he, we stayed there. He moved on the farm from Old Seaton. I think I was going about the first grade of school. Moved back on the farm, and all of us was born and everything, but we lived in that big old house and had kerosene lamps and so forth. We didn't get electricity in that house till 1950, and one reason he moved on the place was that he was going to have electricity the next year. That's what the Northwestern Power Company told him, like a lie, like a lot of business.
Well, when did the power lines go in?
And they went, when they come in from the REA, which is a competitive outfit from the power company, went right by and had the big power poles there. See, they went from town to town to start with. And then there's a few of the farmers got on right from them, but we never did. They had to, as they expanded, they didn't want to overdo it. It was just they'd tell everybody, well, we're non-profit or something.
Well, was it part of the...
They had the same principle as this doggone place over here on Brewster.
Well, wait a minute. Was it part of the rural electrification?
REA was a different one. This other one was a Northwestern Light and Power Company.
So it wasn't part of like the New Deal rural electrification stuff?
Yes, sir. Roosevelt had a lot to do with pushing it.
Well, then you think they would have given it to everybody, kind of equally.
Well, a lot of people already had electricity on their farms, but they went right by and they didn't want to mess with us for, I don't know what the reason was.
Huh.
Maybe if we didn't want to pay the price that they wanted to get out of us, I don't know what they, anyway, my dad.
So how many years was it in the front yard, but not in, hooked up to the house?
It went by between us and it was on the side of the road between the house and us. the light pole lines,
Yeah.
and it went all the way to Sibley, and then up to the corner, and then went north and went into Ocheaton. The railroads and the electric light power company was what made them places up there.
So it was 10 or 15 years before you
Oh,
actually got it?
heavens,
I remember you told one story that
Right.
your dad planted a bunch of trees underneath the power lines.
yes. Yeah, oh yeah.
What was the reasoning behind
I
that?
don't know what he did, but he got big and he had to, oh, she's got a good place to lay there. They like to lay on sofas.
Yeah, she's got good taste. Picks a nice
Like,
antique sofa.
Starts at the top instead of the bottom, huh?
Yeah. She's smart. But,
Well, I got this.
well, most people would find it amazing.
Can I get up now? You got that thing, turn it off.
Hold
I don't want to go out the kitchen and drink that. Really, she spaded it?
Oh, yeah.
You don't know what they did to you then now. You smell something good.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm surprised that you can wear that long hair in the house here, but I guess if you don't exercise and it's not too hot for them. Most dogs got their mouth open and
Well, she's
slobbered all over all the time.
she's got her winter coat right now, and she'll lose it.
Give her a good raking with a fine-tooth comb and pull out as much as you can.
No, set her outside on a couple of hot days, and then she'll start shedding, and then comb her. But yeah, you give her a bath a month from now, and just handfuls of stuff will come out. The undercoat. She's actually pretty clean right now. We gave her a bath right before we went to Kansas.
Dogs
Right.
gotta-
Good dog.
They always like to wag that tail all the
Oh
time.
yeah. She knows she's the dog, and we're the human beings.
You're the best dog around here, aren't you?
Number one dog.
First and only dog we got.
So how many dogs did you have growing up? Just one?
We used to raise puppies once in a while. I did. We had a litter of puppies once. on the
Just
farm.
once?
Just, yeah.
The
But,
the dog you
Yeah,
had?
that's that old phonograph thing that
Yep.
you used to have on the farm.
Yep.
That's just, what's in there, nothing?
Nothing. It's just there.
Yeah, we used to crank that thing up and play them old phonograph records.
Old 78s, yeah.
Not
might have-
70, they were great big old ones.
Yeah.
They didn't have electric
Yeah.
phonographs when I was a little kid.
They go around 78 RPMs.
Yeah,
and
that
then
was-
45s.
That was way up in the 50s or so, come up with them kind of things. That's why I bought them 45s.
Yeah.
You had to have a special little thing to play them,
Yeah.
but that there was, those things have been around for 50 or 100 years. Phonographs are old.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm recording you now with digital video.
Digital video. You got your voice on there too?
Yeah, it'll pick up mine, yeah. It's,
Well, where'd you get the big clock there? Is that part of the...
Danita's grandmother wanted to make sure that we had that after she died. So we,
So you got it as a gift then? huh?
yeah. So when Patty and David moved out here, they had it in their house in Kansas City. They moved out 2 years ago there to Longmont, and they brought it with them. And then
Well,
we
that thing's,
got it.
that somebody stuck their neck out and they bought that thing.
Yeah.
And then 2 mirrors go with it then too?
No.
No.
Uh-uh.
Well, they look like about the same kind of stuff, but I guess the clock is wood and they're made out of something else.
So tell me about school. How do you think you did in school? Grade school, grammar school,
Well,
high
I
school?
told you that already.
I know, but I never recorded it
I
before.
wasn't any prize student as far as being at the top of the class. But I
But how did
was
you become the class president?
just lucky.
Popularity?
Right. And then there one certain girl, she opened up her mouth at the right time, and the rest of them, they couldn't talk her down or outsmart her, so I ended up as the president of the bunch, and they had Alan Smith and Dorothy DeVale, the one that did that. They were higher up on the class than I was, and Marjorie Hemp was a better student.
Huh.
There's a whole bunch of them there. But I don't know, the majority of them wasn't much smarter than I am, just stayed in the middle.
Huh.
But they had a lot of them that either moved or moved in. Them farmers moved around like everybody else. We had 2, 3 of them that spent half of their high school time, 2 years there, and then they moved out.
Well, how did
And then we had 1 or 2 of them moved in that graduated right in the class.
how did you get decent teachers out there in the middle of nowhere? Because
Well,
I would think that
they hire the best they can get for what they. It's just a matter of somebody.
how big was Ocheyedan? I mean, it's not exactly a magnet
Well, it's-
area.
It was about 800 and some people then back in the 40s and 50s, and it hasn't grown any yet. But
I'm sure it's gone down in population, hasn't it?
no, it's just retired people, old people living there. There's no industries there but farming.
But all young people go away, don't
And,
they?
most of the young people get the heck out of there.
Yeah. Well, I would think it'd be less than 800 then.
No, Iowa, a lot of those farmers up there are just like my dad. They had the idea to raise a big family and your kids was going to be a help to you. But it didn't work out that way. And you multiply a new generation and they have each one of them raise 3 or 4 or 5 kids every 30, 40, 50 years. Well, pretty soon they haven't got room to sit down. That's the way it works.
Yeah,
And
but
that's the trouble of the world all over, but they never say anything about that.
well, I mean, it's very different between rural China and rural Iowa. I mean, rural Iowa now, it's like every small Kansas town. They're losing population as everybody goes to big cities.
They're changing their occupation, but Iowa's got more people living in it, higher population than the state of Kansas.
But little towns, I would think, have a lot less.
Well, it's just that somebody looking for a cheap place to retire is the reason they got, and then they living longer and they got to have a place to live.
Yeah. I mean,
And they don't get along with each other a lot of times. That's why they got to have a different house to live in and so forth.
I've thought about living in a cheaper area, but for now I've got to buy a house in a nice expensive neighborhood so I have good neighbors, good schools for the kids,
Well,
and all that. I'd love to live out in the middle of nowhere with
that sounds good, but it's really not so. I don't care for living out in the middle of nowhere on a farm.
yeah,
Well,
there's nothing to do but drive 30 miles to a Walmart.
nothing to do but work out there.
Yeah.
And then they got people that work in town, they want to buy a farm out in the middle of nowhere and retire.
On a farm?
That works 2 ways.
I thought most people want to go from farms to the little farm towns.
You're about 30 years behind times.
Yeah.
Because they can come to these big places and live in these apartments, and this here building big houses and having 2, 3 different generations living in there is a common thing. Because is it possible to have everybody get married and raise a bunch of kids every 20, 30 years and have them have a job and stay in one place? They can't do it.
No.
We're all a bunch of transits.
Yeah. I mean, it's
No,
hard to
okay.
find the perfect place to live. I mean, in
Yeah.
your 20s, you want something exciting, and in your 30s, you want a good place for your kids, and in
Yeah.
retirement, you want a cheap place that has everything.
And they talked about the Chinese communists for years, like they was the worst people in the world. They put it in the newspapers.
Sure.
And the Chinese and the Japanese, you get them away from some of their warmongering leaders. They're as hard working, honest people as you can find.
Sure. What about our warmongering leaders?
I'm talking about Bush.
Bush, yeah. I don't think he's the brightest guy, but I think
I
the
don't
people
know.
around him
I
tell
don't
him
know
what to
how he can
say.
make a good a speech as he does with, it looks like you don't even read it, but he looks like he's just up there to talk. But anybody that's a good talker, that's what the people will vote for and favor. That's why they had the Second World War. And Adolf Hitler, he might not have been the best guy or anything good about him, but he could talk and
People would listen.
and
Tell people what they wanted to hear.
yeah, he knew just what to say and what not to say, and make a big important thing out of himself.
Yeah. Well, it's when people have military ambitions, that's when they get into trouble.
Mhm.
So what do you think about the U.S. going into Iraq?
What do I think about it?
Yeah. What's our motivation for giving a hoot about
I think they
a
ought
bunch
to
of
get
sand?
a United Nations Army and have each one of them have a quota, and anybody like Saddam Hussein gets out of line, will go over there and whip him and get him out of there.
Well, the U.S.
Well, I
did it
think
instead
that's-
of the UN.
That's
So is it our job?
no, there's only two countries in the world that think the way we do, us and Great Britain. That there man over there.
Johnny Blair.
And we fought a war with Britain, we fought a war with France, and 2 wars with Germany.
Why do you think it's us and the British against the Muslims?
Well, they got a high birth rate. It boils down to that. It's that simple. You know how many, the average amount of kids these Muslim women have? 6.
Yeah, so I was going to say 6.
You've heard it. I've probably told you a dozen times.
Yeah,
Means you're recording this, so
yeah.
you can
Well,
quote it again, I guess.
all right, let's start out with the 1930s. What do you remember about the Great Depression?
Yeah, my folks was right in it. They was talking about it all the time.
I mean, how did it affect you? It's not like your
Well,
father didn't have a factory job because of unemployment. He was a farmer. What was the impact?
You wouldn't believe it.
Low prices, no prices? I mean, you weren't starving because
Well,
you grow your own food.
To grow your own food, you had to graze a garden. You don't graze everything you eat out
Right.
in the garden. You got to have salt and pepper and a lot of other newspapers and radios, and got to have gas in the car and a lot of things too. Besides just your eats
So,
and make your standard of living anything.
so were you growing cattle, corn, what?
Yeah, the only thing you'd make any money on was corn and hogs. My dad tried making money with chickens and cows and buying cows and feeding them, or cattle, grassland cattle, and then they'd feed them our corn, and by the end of the winter, get rid of them so we could concentrate on raising next year's crops. We raised corn and oats and hay, and no end of what you could do on a farm to work, make money.
So what was the impact of the Great Depression on farming in the 1930s? Not that you can really remember it, but at least you were
Yeah, I
closer
can-
than I was.
I can remember when it was right in the 30s that the average farmer had to have a tractor. That's when it all started.
Well,
They had a lot of horses on farms, and
well, with horses, it didn't take a lot of money to operate them, and then when you had farm machinery, then it became more of a cash economy. That's a
well, you
switch.
know, one man could do more with a tractor than he could do with a whole bunch of horses. And the tractor, unless he was using it, didn't cost you anything, but the new tractor was a major investment for farmers and about put people out of business.
So did they buy them on credit, or how did they pay for them?
And now you're getting back to the old thing, I probably told you that before too.
What?
Well, my dad come from a small family, my mother did too. And she was the oldest and didn't have any sisters. 2 brothers to boss around. My dad didn't have any sisters, and he was the oldest. And Uncle Jay was my only uncle on his side. And Uncle Andy and Uncle Tom on the mother's side, and they used to both try to tell us how their relation was the best and everything. But my dad, in order to get along with my mother, he had to loan her little brother some money. And then he took his sweet time getting it, paying it back, and he bought a farm, and he was in the farming business and had to have a hired man to help him. It was all tied up, and then when he finally did get that hunk of money back from Uncle Andy, well, then he bought a John Deere tractor.
What year was that?
Oh, I know, it was like in the 30s. And that's when...
So did he buy it, or did he buy it on time?
Well, he got the money from Uncle Andy that he was supposed to get years before. They argued over that, getting that money back. If you watch Judge Judy, well, it's always over somebody loaning somebody some money, and they thought it was a gift instead of a loan, because they didn't put it on paper or got some excuse they don't want to pay it back. Would you loan anybody any money nowadays? Majority of people.
It depends. I would loan money to Ed, but I wouldn't loan it to in-laws.
You'd loan to Ed.
Yeah.
Well, even brothers, you can't trust them with money, can you?
It might always end up being a gift.
If somebody's,
you never know.
If somebody's hooked on dope, they'll do anything in the world to keep their habit going.
Yeah, and I don't think that was a problem with your farming relatives or with my brother.
But
I don't think that's an issue. But but in-laws, you have no idea.
in-laws are more trouble than outlaws. That's what they told me.
Yeah. Well, as World War II was starting, do you think the Great Depression ended because of anything other than the World War II starting? The war in Europe and rise in industry in the U.S.?
Well,
what ended the Great Depression?
What I've seen of economies of all nations and a war, I've heard the statement at Hills, what we need is another good war.
Nixon said that. Yeah.
And Nixon said that, right?
Well.
And he probably took plenty of crap from a lot of people for making a remark like that too.
I don't know if he said it before he was president or after.
Yeah. A big man like him, he should learn not to be talking that line of talk.
Not in front of microphones, no.
Uh-huh.
But why do you think, did the economy change from your perspective, 1936 to 1941?
Well, they always talk about what a disaster a war is, but it does kill off a lot of people. But the ones that, they get more money in your pocket, but what the heck good does it do you? You pay more money for what you get. See, a lot of things, way back when you was making $1 a day or something like that, well, you could buy a heck of a lot with that $30. Nowadays, $30 is nothing.
Right.
That's just the way things are.
Well,
must be still out there. The trees are standing as still as they can be.
Yeah. I think the difference between the economy of back then and today is people live off of credit. People in their 20s don't necessarily learn the lesson until they're in their 30s.
Well,
credit cards, consumer credit.
It's a tough world, but they don't get it in their head. You got that right.
And I don't think, did anybody in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s that you know of have any credit problems? Because I think that's the number one problem today.
They had farmers that couldn't make a go of it.
Oh, they borrowed against the land and all?
Yeah, yes.
And then the bank
The
would
banks
repossess?
going broke. We had bank robbers.
Yeah.
Dillinger gang, did you ever hear of them?
Oh, yeah.
Pretty Boy Floyd and all them. They make heroes out of them now.
Well, your dad was in Chicago in the 1920s, right?
Back when Al Capone was running things, yeah.
That was before he had kids.
Actually, he come off of a farm, and he got a job working in the bank just because he's a young man.
When did he?
Not because
before he got married, right?
He worked in a bank in Chicago before he got married. And that Morrison, Illinois was only 100 miles or so from Chicago, so Chicago was the closest big town, and a young man is drawn to a big town for all of the entitlements they got there. They don't have little towns.
Yeah.
But anyway, Al Capone was a glorified gangster. He didn't do any work, but he robbed banks and made a profession out of that. And he eventually made a little bit of a mistake and he got shot, I guess.
Dang, I don't know. Wait, Capone, I don't know which one was which.
Well,
One of them, he died of essentially syphilis in prison, didn't he?
yeah,
Was that Capone? Some of them were gunned down, but I think Capone lived.
yeah,
He like retired and or died in prison with syphilis.
yeah, that was going on, but
Yeah.
it was just like then, or it was just something to scare everybody and make them toe the line. That's what a lot of people use it for.
Well, Chicago politics, I don't know if they've changed much. They're a little bit less violent probably, but the Chicago politics have always been kind of, I don't know, kind of like, you know, gangster. They're not blatantly gangsters, but
Well,
the machine politics.
Chicago is a place that's inland where there's a whole bunch of people, but it could be, they can send a ship through them from the Great Lakes and it goes clear down from the ocean.
Mhm.
And it's a good thing for the city because it can bring heavy stuff and ship out loads and loads of wheat and corn.
That's where all
And
the
all
cattle.
manufactured goods can be hauled on the wholesale. They can good location for railroads.
So why did your
And
father?
ships.
Why did your father leave Chicago?
Well, he probably heard that buy a farm and be a farmer is the thing to do.
I
Get
don't-
married.
I know most people in their 20s
Why-
these
why
days.
Why do people preach about not getting married, and then most of them do get married? Even in the family, well, it don't take any brains to get married, but the problem is getting along with them afterwards.
Yeah.
And it's all downhill all the way. They can glorify this staying married and everything, but that's not really true, I don't think, after about 50, 60 years of being around, being old enough and seeing what really happens, your neighbors and so forth. But,
Well, that's a
I
little
used-
bit grim, but
well, I can't forget the Swall family.
who's that?
That we used to walk across the land, their farm all the time, go to country school. And there was 3 bachelors and 2 old maids out of in one family.
Hmm.
And the ones that did get married raised a big bunch of kids.
Well, what was wrong with that?
And the one that did raise a big family there, he had 2 of them in the family who was orphans. Not orphans, but they never did grow up, only about so big.
Oh, dwarfs?
Dwarfs, yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, neighbors, someone was making fun of them, but
Hmm.
it's not a very good thing to be poking fun at somebody like that.
No. I don't think that's changed a lot in human
No, that
history.
hasn't changed, but my mother was criticizing Bob Jensen's mother, who was criticizing the Swalls and telling everybody that they got they can make their living by running a freak show.
That's not very kind.
Yeah, women they're real brutal in a lot of ways.
Well, with a small town, you know, it keeps everybody in line and provides all the entertainment.
They never done lies.
So,
Take a stretch once in a while.
so where were you when you first heard about Pearl Harbor?
On a Sunday afternoon,
It took a while for the news to get there.
yeah,
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. Well, how did you hear about it?
You haven't heard me say that before? I
No,
think you have.
I don't remember now.
But somebody, an acquaintance that my mother knew all her life, an adopted boy, Jeff Legault, which was another adopted boy who grew up with Darrell Legault's dad, Charlie Legault. And he come over and told us that the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, but they didn't really know much about it. by Sunday afternoon, we just heard it.
Did you know that we had a military base in Pearl Harbor, or know where Pearl Harbor was?
I did, but didn't pay attention to it probably.
It wasn't a state at the time.
Well, a lot of countries thought we didn't have any business having a bunch of battleships over there anyway. But the Japanese did kind of stretch their luck a little bit, and they scored pretty good on that, but it just made a lot of people mad at them. Yeah?
Yeah, no doubt about it. Well, what's funny is we quickly ignored the Pacific War and then, concentrated on what was going on in
We had
Europe.
the resources, and we concentrated over there too. We started a long war over there.
I mean, did you see World War II coming?
Oh yes, Roosevelt and Churchill, they cooperated real good and did everything they could to get everybody to cooperate with their way of thinking.
What, the Germans went into Poland in what, 1936?
39.
39, okay.
And in the end of 41, which is, they went in September 39, I think. And then the Japanese bombed the end of
41.
41, which would be at least 2 years difference there. In those 2 years, Roosevelt and Churchill, we was manufacturing war goods, airplanes, and sending over ammunition and food for liberty and food for...
So that was the end of the Great Depression before Pearl Harbor?
It relieved a lot of depression, yeah.
Well, so after Pearl Harbor, did people immediately join the services? I mean, did your brothers take up?
Yes, we had a whole bunch of teenage boys that quit high school
Well, I know
and
there's
stuff like that.
there's that one family photograph of December 25th, 1941, where, all the kids are there. You're
And the
there.
Sullivan family. They made a movie about it, the Fighting Sullivans.
Oh, no. There's a family portrait of your mom, your dad, your
Yeah,
brothers, Gladys,
my
Grace.
Yeah, my dad was like everybody else.
Well, how long after that picture was taken did Art and Elmer take off for war?
He got drafted in, really.
Well, they didn't volunteer.
No, they didn't volunteer.
Did they want to go?
They had peacetime military conscription going for a long time. See,
How-
as soon as the Germans invaded Poland, well, Roosevelt was talking up peacetime military conscription. So Art and Elmer both, they got in there, but it wasn't but it was a bunch of, I don't know what you call it, just the military, when it comes to getting people in there, they say one thing and do just the opposite. Money talks. Money makes the world go around.
Well, were they reluctant to be
No,
conscripted?
they were patriotic and good, and they thought getting away from the farm was a pretty good thing to away. But
Now, what Art was in Alaska?
he went to Attu, yeah. That's way over north of Japan. But there's a whole string of islands. Starts
The Aleutians?
Aleutian Islands, starts and goes clear over to almost to Asia.
So there weren't any battles there, were there?
No.
He was
Well-
lucky.
Well, let's see though.
That's a cold place.
One of them islands, the Japanese did run out, but there's most of them they had to fight their way in.
But he was there. He didn't see any combat there.
After the Japanese left, on the island of Attu, I don't think. And most of the time he was there. By the time he got there, the war was about half over, or getting started good. Then he got stuck there for 18 months.
What did he say about it? Was it cold?
Oh yes, it was terrible, cold, damp. That's the kind of place that nobody lived.
Yeah.
Well,
Seals don't even go there, I don't think.
well, that's about all it could stand it, seals and whales, and when the ice isn't froze over.
What did he do to keep himself entertained? Did he ever tell you?
They had to live and survive there. He was expecting the Japanese to come around that way and invade the United States. They built that Alaskan highway. That was a big thing to employ a lot of people. We had a lot of people in our town there, that Ocheyedan, that worked on the Alaskan highway.
went up through Canada to Alaska.
Well, it kind of starts out there at the state of Washington somewhere and goes zigzagging up. They wanted to make it far enough away from the coastline and everything, but they spent a lot of money. Those big construction companies, they hit up the government real good for being
Well, yeah. I
making
mean,
a road when it was a terrible place to work. It was
oh yeah,
cold.
the building season's real short
Yeah.
unless you want to build it on ice. So now, did I ever hear Art say that he was fishing for salmon with hand grenades?
Well, I probably told you that. Or did you hear Art say?
It rings a bell.
That's the way they used to catch fish, he said.
Hand
That
grenades.
wasn't legal, but that's what they did.
Yeah. Well, if they're out in the middle of the ocean, you might as well.
Yeah,
How big of an island was it? I don't really know where it is.
that too is one of the bigger ones.
Okay.
But the reason that they had stationed some American troops up there was have a base and keep the Japanese surrounded so they wouldn't invade the west coast.
Was there an airstrip up there?
Oh, I suppose they had some kind of a airstrip or seaplanes or something.
Was he living in a tent the whole time, or they have real
Yeah,
housing?
I don't know about too much either, but
Because that sounds like a real awful place.
they had even tents. If it's cold all the time, you can spray them with water and make them airtight.
Hmm.
If you don't have too much heat inside, and that's the way to do it. You have one layer of ice and tent, and then you can build another tent inside of it. You got a dead air space. So if it's 0 or never gets above freezing, well, you got a pretty good place.
Hmm.
Because
As long as you don't
as
suffocate
long as you
yourself.
could haul in food and stuff. All them people ever had to live up there was fish and stuff like that. So that's why I knew what many people live there.
So was Elmer married after he got back from World War
Oh
II?
yes, afterwards.
Now, how did he end up in Australia? Is that where he was?
Yeah, they sent him there just to see the Japs. They went clear down. They wasn't far from Australia.
Oh, he wasn't in Australia? Where was he?
He was in Australia, but the
Japanese, yeah.
And they see the Solomon Islands, and all them was just a whole string just along north part of Australia. Yeah, there's white people down there in Australia. They was scared to death that the Japanese was going to take over the whole continent.
They never did go.
They never did. They had to whip the United States Navy, and they found out that they wasn't fighting other Chinese. That's what I heard, and there's a lot of truth to it, because they found out that they tackled more than they had intentions of tackling anyway.
So how long was he in Australia?
Well, he was there quite a while.
More than a year?
Yeah.
But once again, he didn't see any combat. He's pretty lucky.
He,
Now, how is it a couple of farm boys didn't end up as sharpshooters? Because I would think that, as
Yeah,
farm boys, you'd have to be a pretty good shot.
It's a long story, but it's whether you're married or not, and that's got something to do with it.
They weren't
I
married.
probably told you that a long time ago, and you want me to repeat it again, don't you?
What?
Well, Pat, the poor old fellow, was just the right age that he went through the Depression in South Dakota, and
Well, he was married, so he saw
he
combat?
got married. He got married just before the Second World War started.
Yeah. So he saw
And
combat?
Rosemary was born about the time that he got drafted in.
Uh-huh.
But he was a married man and he had a family, and he's still seen more action than somebody that was single.
Why?
And the government and the army was preaching to everybody to, if you wanted to stay out of the service or anything, get married, don't be single. And then they did just exactly the opposite. That was just our
Was he
family.
drafted?
He had to go where they wanted him to go.
Huh.
He could have got killed too, but he
Where
didn't.
was he?
He went through 5 campaigns, one right after another,
Where? Italy?
all over the Pacific.
Oh, really?
Went island hopping.
Oh, God.
See, the Japanese spread out and they thought they had us by the tail, but they found out and the airplane was a big thing coming into power. They was running their government the way the military had been running it for a long time. They're fighting a bigger country and they're more modern than they are. And they found out a few things that they was thinking wasn't exactly true.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, they, you know, they would fight till the last man, and they
Yeah, well,
they had a,
that was their peasant soldiers down at the bottom. But before the Second World War was over, the Japanese army actually had enough brains to retreat. They didn't do that with the Chinese very much, but that war over there in Europe or Asia went on for starting in the 30s, and they was fighting in
1931 is when they went into
the
Manchuria.
Burma Road and Alaska and all that was just a fighting over territory. Not the
Supply lines.
well, it's to have somebody surrounded.
Yeah.
You gotta have so they can't have access to only a third or a half of the world. But
Yeah.
they could go on under our fleet with a submarine and stuff, but you can't carry supplies and troop ships and stuff in a submarine. And you can't do it in an airplane, but you can watch if you got a big seaplane, they had them those days, clipper ships they call them.
Mm-hmm.
But they could land anywhere on the water in a cove or close to somewhere where if the waves wasn't too high, they could land and take off. And it's an airplane that can do that's pretty good. But I think their land-based planes are probably still better than a seaplane. But a seaplane, if they got the water is still, and if they're facing the wind, which is a big advantage, they can take off with a pretty good heavy load. You know? But, well,
Want to take a
we're
break?
doing talking here at noon hour.
Yeah.
Why don't you shut that thing off?